The night the sky fell apart, Elias was only thinking about fuel and distance. His truck rattled along the desert road, headlights cutting a narrow tunnel through dust and darkness. The radio crackled with static and half-heard warnings about military exercises gone wrong. Then the horizon bloomed with light, too bright and too sudden to be lightning. The air shook, the ground groaned, and something burned its way across the sky, trailing fire like a wounded star. Elias slammed the brakes and shielded his eyes, heart pounding as the object screamed overhead and vanished beyond the dunes. For a long moment, the desert was silent again, as if holding its breath. He should have driven away. Every instinct said leave, survive, forget. Instead, he turned the truck toward the impact, dust boiling behind him as he chased the fading glow. The wreck lay half buried in sand and stone, a torn shape of metal and crystal, still hissing with heat. Flames licked the broken hull, painting the rocks in violent orange light. And near it, collapsed in the sand, was a woman. She looked human at first glance, too human to belong in a place like this. Dark hair spilled across the ground, skin pale, and marked with faint lines that shimmered when the fire flared. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, and her eyes fluttered weakly as Elias knelt beside her. He hesitated only a second before shrugging off his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. Her skin was burning hot, not feverish, but radiant, as if warmth flowed from her bones. When his fingers brushed her wrist, a pulse answered him, strong and alive. Voices echoed in the distance, engines, radios, men coming fast. Elias did not wait to see who they were. He lifted the woman into his arms, surprised by how light she felt, and carried her to the truck. She stirred as he laid her across the back seat, eyes opening just enough to meet his. They were not brown or blue, but something deeper, like starlight caught in water. Her lips parted, and a single word escaped, soft and urgent. Run! Elias did not argue. The engine roared, and the truck leapt forward, racing away as searchlights cut the sky behind them. He did not know who she was, or what had fallen from the stars. He only knew he could not leave her there to burn. As the desert swallowed the road, and the night closed in again. The woman slept, breathing slowly now, wrapped in his jacket. And somewhere deep within her, a crown of living light waited in silence. She woke at dawn. Sunlight streamed through the dusty windows of the safe house Elias rarely used, a forgotten building far from roads and satellites. She sat up suddenly, alert and poised, despite the bandages around her arms, and sighed. Where am I? She asked, voice steady but unfamiliar, carrying tones that did not belong to any earth language. Safe, Elias replied, handing her a cup of water. You crashed in the desert. I found you before anyone else did. She studied him with unsettling focus, as if weighing his words against something ancient. You risked yourself for me, she said quietly. I guess I did, he answered, unsure why it felt like a confession. Her name, she said, was Lyra. It was not a lie, but it was not the whole truth. She did not tell him she was Queen Lyra of the Aurelian Concord, ruler of 1,000 living worlds. She did not tell him her ship had been hunted, betrayed, torn from the void by enemies who would burn entire species to reach her. Instead, she learned him. She watched the way he moved, the care he took with her injuries, the silence he carried like an old companion. She learned the sound of his laughter, rare but real, and the weight of his loneliness. Days passed, then weeks. Outside, the world whispered rumors of strange lights and military blackouts. Inside, two lives intertwined in quiet defiance of the universe. Lyra healed faster than she should have, her body knitting itself with luminous precision. Elias noticed, but did not question. Some truths arrive only when invited. At night she stood beneath the stars, eyes shining with grief and longing. Her people were scattered, her fleet broken, her throne light years away. And yet here, On a forgotten world, a single human had changed the course of her fate. "You saved me," she told him one evening. "Not just my life, but my hope." Elias shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude that felt too heavy. Anyone would have done the same. She smiled then, a small sad smile, knowing how untrue that was. The sky changed before the attack. Lyra felt it first, a pressure in the air, a wrongness humming beneath reality. "They have found me," she whispered, eyes wide with dread. "Who has?" Elias asked, already reaching for the rifle he kept by the door. "Those who would see your world burn to claim what I am." The first ship arrived without sound, sliding out of nothing above the horizon, black and angular, alive with menace. Then another and another, blotting out the stars. Elias had fought men before, had survived wars and ambushes. This was something else entirely. Soldiers poured from the ships, armored and inhuman, weapons glowing with cruel energy. The ground trembled as they advanced. Lyra stepped forward, light flaring around her as the truth could no longer remain hidden. Her skin glowed, markings blazing like constellations. A crown of radiant force formed above her head, undeniable and terrible. "I am their queen," she said, voice ringing with power. "And they will kill all of you to reach me." Elias stared, fear and awe crashing through him. "You are an alien," he said, stating the impossible. She met his gaze, tears shining in her eyes. "And I would give my life to protect you, as you once protected me." The battle was chaos. Energy fire tore through stone and sand. Lyra stood at the center, a living star, shielding Elias and the building with walls of light. Each strike against her defenses cost her strength. Each enemy she destroyed burned away part of her life force. Elias fought beside her, knowing his bullets meant little, but refusing to run. When a blast broke through and struck her chest, she cried out and fell. "No," he shouted, catching her as she collapsed. She smiled up at him, weak and radiant. "A queen does not flee," she said. "And love is worth dying for." Lyra's power flared one last time, a wave of brilliance that tore the enemy fleet apart. Ships shattered, soldiers vanished, the sky screamed and then went silent. When the light faded, she lay still in Elias' arms. Her glow dimmed to embers, her breathing shallow, fading. "Stay with me," he begged, voice breaking. "I saved you once, remember." She reached up, touching his face with trembling fingers. "You did more than save me," she whispered. "You reminded me why a queen must live." The markings on her skin dimmed, flowing inward, gathering at her heart. She pressed her palm to his chest, and warmth surged through him, filling him with light and memory not his own. In that moment, he saw her world. Golden cities, living ships, children of light singing beneath alien suns. He felt her people's hope and their desperation. "Live," she said. "Remember us." Her crown shattered into sparks, dissolving into the air. And Lyra, queen of the Aurelian Concord, died in the arms of a human who had never known the stars until her. The desert was quiet again. Too quiet. Elias buried her beneath the open sky, marking the place with stone and silence. He did not cry until the stars came out, and even then the tears felt too small. Years passed. The world changed, slowly, subtly. Strange technologies appeared, reverse-engineered from wreckage no one could explain. Humanity reached farther, dreamed bigger. And Elias, once a drifter, became something else entirely. He carried Lyra's memory like a living flame. In his dreams, she walked beside him, smiling, proud, unafraid. One night, as he stood beneath the stars where she had fallen, the air shimmered. A fleet emerged, vast and luminous, filling the sky with light that did not burn. A voice echoed across the desert, gentle and strong. "We have come for the one who saved our queen." Figures of light descended, bowing before him. Through your compassion, they said, our people survived. Through her sacrifice, the war was won. Elias looked up at the stars, heart heavy and full all at once. She kept her promise, he murmured. Among the constellations, a new light flared, steady and eternal. The mark of a queen who died for love, and a human who proved that even the smallest act of mercy can echo across the universe. The fleet did not leave that night. They hovered above the desert like patient constellations, waiting, watching, honoring a debt older than treaties. Elias stood among them, a single human beneath vessels grown from light and living metal. Fear tried to rise, but could not find purchase. Lyra's warmth still lingered in his chest, steady and calm. A figure stepped forward from the descending glow, tall and radiant, features shifting between forms Elias could almost recognize. I am Vela, first guardian of the Aurelian Concord, the figure said, voice layered like many speaking as one. You stand upon sacred ground, human. Elias nodded slowly, hands at his sides. She lies here, he replied. She gave everything. Vela inclined his head, a gesture heavy with respect. Her sacrifice echoes through every surviving world. But her story does not end in death, nor does yours. The air shimmered and the desert fell away, not physically, but in perception. Elias felt himself standing in two places at once, beneath Earth's stars and beneath suns he had never known. Visions unfolded around him like living memory. He saw the aftermath of the war. Enemy worlds collapsing under the weight of their own cruelty. Aurelian fleets rallying, not with vengeance, but with resolve. Children lifted from ruins, civilizations rebuilt from ash. All of it carried Lyra's name like a quiet anthem. Queen of sacrifice. Queen of the open hand. They remember her, Elias said softly. They live because of her, Vela answered. And because of you. Elias frowned, the weight of those words pressing against him. I only saved one life, he said. Vela's eyes glowed brighter. A single life can outweigh an empire. That was her belief. That is why she chose you. The Guardian extended a hand, light coiling gently around it. Within the glow hovered a shard of brilliance, familiar and aching. The last echo of her crown. Lyra foresaw this moment, Vela said. She bound part of herself to you when she died. Not as a weapon, not as a command, but as a choice. The shard drifted closer, pulsing in time with Elias' heart. He felt her again, not as a ghost, but as a presence steady and warm. Not speaking, not gidding, only trusting. What choice, Elias asked, voice rough. To walk away. Or to stand with us. Vela gestured, and the stars shifted, revealing distant worlds in fragile balance. The war is over, but the scars remain. The galaxy is changing, and not all will change with mercy. We do not ask you to rule, Vela continued. We do not ask you to fight. We ask you to witness, to speak, to remind us of what she died to protect. Elias closed his eyes, memories flooding him. The fire in the desert. Her quiet smile. The way she had looked at the stars as if they were family. If I go with you, he said, Earth will move on without me. Earth will move on regardless, Vela replied gently. But it will not forget. The shard touched Elias' chest, dissolving into warmth. Power did not surge. No thunder answered. Only understanding. He saw paths unfolding, futures branching like light through crystal. Some led to war renewed, others to fragile peace, and some to silence, cold and empty. In every future where compassion endured. A human voice carried Lyra's story. Elias opened his eyes. I will go, he said, but I will return. Vela smiled, a rare and human thing. That too she hoped for. The fleet lifted at dawn, not with violence but with grace. Elias looked down at Earth, blue and small and immeasurably precious. He felt no distance, only connection. As the stars stretched and space folded, he felt Lyra beside him, not as a queen, not as a martyr, but as the woman he had saved, and the woman who had saved him in return. Across the galaxy, worlds would hear a story carried by an unlikely messenger. A story not of domination or destiny, but of a single choice made in fire. And far below, beneath familiar stars, a quiet grave in the desert glowed softly for a moment, as if acknowledging that love, once given, never truly leaves. Time moved differently beyond Earth. Days unfolded like pages instead of hours, and distance felt more like intention than space. Elias learned this as the Aurelian fleet carried him between worlds reborn from war. The first was a water world, its cities floating like living lilies beneath a pale sun. Aurelians gathered as he arrived, not in ranks or ceremony, but in quiet circles. They looked at him not with reverence, but recognition. This is the human, voices whispered through light and air. This is the one she trusted. Elias stood before them with empty hands and a full heart. He had no crown, no uniform, no claim to greatness. Only a story. He spoke of the desert night, of fear and choice, of a woman bleeding starlight who asked nothing and gave everything. As he spoke, the waters below the city glowed softly, resonating with memory. Aurelian children listened wide-eyed, absorbing a truth older than their grief. That power did not make a queen. Sacrifice did. From world to world Elias traveled. To forest planets where trees sang in harmonies of light. To shattered moons still healing from orbital fire. To refugee stations built from wreckage and hope. Everywhere he went, he refused titles. Ambassador felt too political. Hero felt unearned. He called himself a witness. With each telling, Lyra's presence grew clearer. Not louder, not commanding, but steady, like a hand at his back, reminding him to speak honestly and listen carefully. Not all welcomed him. On the edges of Aurelian space, resentment lingered like radiation. Species who had lost worlds questioned mercy. What good is compassion against extinction, they asked. Elias did not argue. He listened. He let their anger exist without denial. Then he told them how Lyra had chosen death over domination. How she had destroyed the enemy fleet not with conquest, but finality. Ending the war instead of continuing it. Some turned away, unconvinced. Others stayed, thoughtful. Change did not arrive all at once. It never did. On the third cycle of his journey, Elias returned to Earth. Not in secret, not in fire, but beneath open skies at dawn. Governments panicked. Satellites screamed. But the fleet held position, visible and calm. Elias walked forward alone, hands empty, heart steady. He spoke to humanity as he had spoken to the stars. Not as a savior, but as a reminder. He told them they were not alone, that they had been noticed not for their weapons, but for a single act of mercy, that the universe was vast and watching and learning. Fear rippled through crowds. Wonder followed. And somewhere between the two, possibility took root. He did not stay long. Earth needed time, and humanity needed to choose its own path, just as Lyra had chosen hers. When he left again, it was with permission rather than panic, with questions instead of threats. Years passed, measured differently now. Elias aged slowly, touched by alien light, but not removed from human time. He felt loss still, felt longing, but never emptiness. On the anniversary of Lyra's death, the fleet gathered once more above the desert. Not for mourning, but for renewal. A monument of light rose from the sand, shaped not like a throne or a weapon, but like two hands reaching toward each other. One human, one not. Vela stood beside Elias, watching the glow settle into permanence. She would be proud, the Guardian said. Elias smiled softly, eyes on the stars. She already is. Somewhere beyond sight, new civilizations would one day hear a quiet truth. That a war had ended not because one side was stronger, but because one queen had been brave enough to trust a stranger. And that stranger, a human with no destiny written for him, had chosen kindness on a burning night, setting in motion a future no empire could have forced. The universe remembered Lyra as a queen of light, but it remembered Elias as something rarer still, the one who answered an unspoken plea, and proved that even in an endless cosmos, one choice made with compassion could change everything.